right, for this week's Tuesday Tips, we're going to go over 5 ways to help improve your saxophone altissimo. But before we get into what these 5 exercises are, I think it's important to mention that you need to have a really good sound concept on what the altissimo register should sound like. I think the best way to do this is to listen to recordings of some of your favorite saxophonists. One other consideration that we need to talk about is equipment. If your reed is too soft when paired with your tip opening, you can end up blowing and closing off the reed. And if it's too hard, it can also be really uncomfortable to play on. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all for you. It kind of involves some experimenting. All right, so that gets us to exercise number 1, long tones. The great Lenny Pickett once said that long tones are the single most important exercise when trying to develop your tone and playing the high notes. I found that practicing long tones helps me increase diaphragm support. It helps me develop embouchure strength. It helps me control the airspeed. And all of those are key aspects to playing in the altissimo register. All right, now for exercise number 2, that is overtones. I've heard it be described that practicing overtones and practicing altissimo is one and the same. However you're practicing your overtones, it's important to remember that we're trying to control airspeed. Airspeed is going to be impacted by both your diaphragm support, but also by tongue position in the oral cavity. Think of the difference between ah and e and where your tongue is in your mouth in relationship to the roof of your mouth. As you practice your overtones, it can be helpful to experiment with different vowel shapes, see what type of results you get. That takes us to exercise number 3, pitch bending. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with palm key pitch bending, where you play a note in the palm keys and try and bring the pitch down as low as you can. I think that's a great exercise for beefing up your palm keys. So for example, I might play palm key D, then I might finger high C sharp, re-finger palm key D, and then by making adjustments in the oral cavity, bring the pitch low to match that C sharp. I think this is a great exercise for your palm keys. I think it's also a great exercise to do on altissimo notes, especially in front of a tuner, so that you can start to train muscle memory on exactly where the sweet spot in the oral cavity and with your air support is for each altissimo note. That takes us to exercise number 4, and that is blowing altissimo sixths and altissimo ninths. So practicing overtones was a great way for us to learn how to manipulate the air and to find how to play different notes off of different fundamentals. But practicing overtones alone isn't going to help make your altissimo notes as great as they could be. It's not enough just to practice overtones. You need to practice the altissimo notes themselves. So for example, doing the same concept that we'd use to blow overtones, we're now going to do that on the palm key notes. So for example, if I play palm key D and I blow an overtone above that, that's going to be a 6th, and I'll produce a B. If I continue to blow the next overtone over that, it's a 9th, and it gives me an altissimo E. Practicing your altissimo 6ths and 9ths is important to do on all of the palm keys. Last but not least, we are on exercise number 5, which is less of an exercise and more about experimenting with different fingerings. So in our last exercise, we talked about blowing altissimo 6ths and 9ths, which is a great start to getting into the altissimo, but you'll find that blowing overtones over those palm keys doesn't always get you the most in-tune altissimo notes that you might be looking for. But something that you can experiment is also putting down your 3rd finger. Now what this does is it switches from using this octave key to opening your 2nd octave vent there. Experiment putting down your 3rd finger on various altissimo notes to see how the tone sounds. You can also experiment putting down different combinations on the right hand and even playing around with closing down maybe the low C key or venting your C sharp key. You might try and experiment what it sounds like opening and closing different lengths of the tubing to see how that improves both the intonation and tone quality on various saxophone fingerings. Sometimes it's important to use the full length of tubing to get the best, fattest altissimo sound. And again, that's something you can experiment. It's really common sometimes to blow overtones over palm keys for fast passages, but on notes that you really want to wail on, you could use the full length of tubing. Thank you for checking out this video on my 5 tips for pumping up your altissimo. I hope it was helpful to you. And for more great Tuesday tips, check out US Fleet Forces Band on Facebook, Instagram, and all the other social media platforms.